Hello everyone, and welcome back to Inside ArtScroll, where the books you read and the people who write them come to life. Today we are joined by Rabbi David Sutton, the author of the brand new A Daily Dose of Bitachon. Thank you, Rabbi Sutton, for being here. I should mention that in addition to this brand new book, you're the best-selling author of the commentary on the Beis HaLevi on Bitachon, which came out last year. You've written Embrace Shabbos. You've been a popular ArtScroll author for many years, so we're honored to have you here today.
Thank you, my pleasure.
This book is absolutely fantastic. Since it came out, I haven't put it down. I've been reading it every single day. I myself have gleaned tremendous chizuk from it. I like the way it's broken down. But before we get into real heavy-duty questions about Bitachon, and we'll put you on the spot a bit, tell our viewers why you chose to write this book and how it compares to the regular learning of the Chovos HaLevavos Shaar HaBitachon, which is what it's based on.
So this book is really based on shiurim that I gave in our shul in Brooklyn, Yad Yosef, together with Rabbi Ozeri. And I've been giving shiurim in Chovos HaLevavos for years. I would say, I don't know, maybe 20 years.
Oh.
And when I started even back in yeshiva, the first sefer that I bought, Musar Sefer, in Ber Yaakov, which goes back close to 40 years ago, they told me, I still remember, it was the Mashgiach Katan, his name was Rav Valach, under Rav Volba, said, "Do you have any money?" I was a wealthy American boy. My father's a doctor. I said, "For what?" He says, "Could you afford to buy a sefer?" I was like, I have $100 a week allowance. It's not a problem. But he says, buy yourself a 2-volume Chovos HaLevavos, the one with the Lieberman with the translation on the bottom of Lev Tov. You should read it. That was the first Musar Sefer I started with. And it was very hard. This psukim, and he's bringing proofs. And it was really a limud. It was a hard, it's not, so Meksil Shasharim is a little smoother. Chovos HaLevavos is really a limud. And over the years, till I myself understood it, and I started giving shiurim on it, and my goal was to make it that your average person could pick up a sefer, maybe one day you'll put it into Hebrew, and just read it straight, without those, so to say, bumps in the road.
Exactly.
To make it, navigate through it. I still remember a mashal. You wanted to say?
No, I wanted to just say that I found with the Beis HaLevi on Bitachon also that sometimes it's cumbersome because he's constantly quoting psukim as proofs, and unless you're keeping track of the back and forth, sometimes you could, lose focus. And that's really what I wanted to say is what I found with this particular book is that it takes the foundations of the Chovos HaLevavos Shaar HaBitachon and then it brings it down into a very practical approach, practical ideas, lessons with stories. Really, every single chapter, which is short, it's a page or two, which you could read in a few minutes every single day. There's a real tangible takeaway, whereas when you're learning Chovos HaLevavos Shaar HaBitachon, which is the source of so much of what we know about Bitachon, it's a real limud, and not everyone has the wherewithal all the time to do that. Obviously, I'm sure you yourself would recommend, if you're able to, learn the source work, obviously. But as far as reaching the masses, that's what I think this book accomplishes.
So the way it evolved was, and you're saying the each one standalone lesson, it was originally a 6-minute lesson class that was recorded. It started with a group of people. We recorded and started to get out there. A few thousand people listen every day to this daily Bitachon class. It's email, chat. And each one was a standalone from the Chovos HaLevavos. So you could listen to it and you had to walk away. That was the goal, to get someone to listen for 5-6 minutes with a takeaway. But all those mini takeaways joined together, and with the 130 plus lessons, it became a book. So it has the quality of you could just open it to any page and read it with a takeaway. But if you start from the beginning to the end, you're really going to get the Chovos HaLevavos' messages throughout. So
I'll tell you something else that I liked, personally, a pet peeve of mine. I didn't find that it's just the stories, a collection of hashgacha prata stories where things worked out in the end for everyone and they lived happily ever after, which very often could actually be disheartening. For people who want to acquire emunah and bitachon, they don't necessarily want to read stories about how, a guy happened to be in the right place at the right time and it all worked out. That's not really what emunah and bitachon are. And I appreciated that about the book, that it's not just those feel-good stories. It's really giving you the foundations. Can you talk about that? Talk about, first of all, the difference between Emunah and Bitachon, and really what Bitachon means. It's not just having faith, it's relying on Hashem. And then I'll follow up with a different question, which which is maybe a misnomer about Bitachon, meaning that everything works out for the best. Or I'll let you comment on that.
So the first difference between Emunah and Bitachon, that's a famous question, and I like to use the mashal as follows. Emunah is really my belief system. I believe that ArtScroll is going to put out my next sefer. I believe that right now in my head. The next book, am I specifically relying on Rabbi Gedalia Zlotowitz right now to do it for me? I'm not relying on him. In my head, I know he can do it. I didn't tell him, Rabbi Gedalia, I'm counting on you, I'm relying on you. That's just my belief system. Bitachon is it's more of a relationship. Emunah is I believe, of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here, it is a relationship, he's here, he's with me, but I'm not relying on him. I know my father can cover my mortgage. I know he could. Does that mean I'm relying on him to do so? So Bitachon is more, I'm activating my reliance on HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and forgive me if they're elementary, but this is part of the Bitachon kind of protocol. People ask these questions. So I'm relying on the Ribono Shel Olam for my bills, to pay my bills. Is that normative hishtadlus to rely on Hashem for something? I don't know. Maybe Hashem doesn't want me to do X, Y, and Z. How do I know that what I'm relying on the Ribono Shel Olam for is actually what Hashem wants?
So Hashem told you rely on Him. That's one of the things the Chovos HaLevavos says at the end, is that people make the mistake. They don't realize that Hashem actually commanded you. It's a mitzvah. He wants you to rely on Him. And He wants you, like Rav Olba once told me, use your seichel. Use your seichel. He gave me the following mashal. I once asked him many years ago, I don't know, this is 30 years ago, more. I was in Israel. I'm a yeshiva bacher taking buses. And I could either run for the bus and make the bus, huffing and puffing, or walk to the bus and miss the bus. How do I know what Hashem wants from me? That was my question. He told me Hashem wants to use your seichel. And he said, seichel says walk. Don't run like a meshugana. Mm-hmm. So you have to use your seichel. So whatever the normative hishtadlus is, that's what you're supposed to be doing. And then once you do what's normative, then you leave the rest to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the basic formula. Now, what's normative is do you have to exercise 3 times a week or 4 times a week? Is it a half an hour or is it 22 minutes? What's normative? So you have to ask a doctor, ask a lawyer. What's normal? What's considered the standard hishtadlus? I had high blood pressure. My cardiologist said you should spend 4 times a week walking for 45 minutes. I try to do that. That's normative hishtadlus. Now, a person could do that and still not have healthy blood pressure, and a person could not do this and yes have to. But that's the normative thing to do. And then after all that, you rely on Hashem, because it doesn't always work.
Right. Is normative hishtadlus to clip coupons and run around to 3 stores to save $20, on various items, or do I go to my local from supermarket, and is that considered normative hishtadlus? That's probably a very common example. How do you really know?
So it also depends on what you're comfortable with. That means Rav David Soloveitchik Zichron Livracha said, hishtadlus is like a anxiety pill. It has to be that you do it and you feel you did enough. If you're comfortable with that, then that's pretty much an indicator. He almost says hishtadlus is just a way to make it easier for you to have bitachon. So you have to do enough. It's really very personal. What's considered enough. If I could sort of say, with my bitachon, sleep well at night, that's pretty much the formula.
Right. Now, should you be doing more hishtadlus or less hishtadlus? If you're doing almost extra hishtadlus, is that a demonstration or a manifestation of a lack of bitachon? On some level?
That's the Yosef HaTzadik when he says, twice remember me. That extra the time, right. When you do too much hishtadlus, that's showing that you're not...
Right. Another practical example. Yesterday I was speaking to a friend of mine who opened up to me. He told me he's $75,000 in debt from various expenses. He made a simcha and just living, the cost of from living. is a lot, and he doesn't have people helping him, and he's in debt. What could I have told him on a practical Bitachon level? Someone who's really, we'll say behind the eight ball, and he's Yar Shemayim. He believes that the Rebbeinu Shalom could do anything.
Right, but that's
He's
he
the Kol
believes.
Yachol.
He believes. But now Bitachon means he's really relying on a Kadosh Baruch Hu. He's sitting there. He's talking to him, and I'm counting on you. And he really is I know people in our community. I know a fellow that's he's a salesman for expensive watches. Expensive watches today, Patek Philippe, these $200,000, $300,000 watch, and he'll make enough to cover a month expenses on those watches, but there's no way for him. He gets a call from Saudi Arabia, he gets a call from here, someone will call, and just there's no way to know when it's happening. He says, I just wait and rely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he's just living it. So if you really live it and really, you put your money where your mouth is,
right.
People like that do see wonders. I mean, people come back to me with stories. There's sometimes, amazing how people things work out. Like, you don't want to hear those feel-good stories, but when you actually have bitachon, you'll see them happening.
But I like what you're saying, because the truth is people mistakenly interchange the terms emunah and bitachon, even though they're really not the same. The truth is that emunah really is much easier than bitachon. Bitachon is the harder part of the avodah of literally relying. That means if you're really relying on someone and you believe that they could and will come to your salvation, then your stress level should be very low, which leads into something else that you mentioned in the book. You kind of allude to mental health. You talk about CBT, and I know that you've done recently some background research on this. Talk about that, and talk about how really interrelated emunah and bitachon are with our mental health and peace of mind, unrelated to the religious component
right.
of it.
That's a very interesting point you're bringing up. I actually have a good friend. He's a professor in Harvard Medical School, as well as he works in the McLean Hospital, which is Harvard's mental hospital in Boston. His name is Dr. David Rossmarin. He's a good Frum Ben Torah who learns Kaveh Itim. And actually, there's a story about him. I first met him through Living Emunah, Rabbi Asher's book, because he brings a story there. He was a student in Harvard. He was having a lot of anxiety over tests. And the rabbi in the Hillel house said, you know what? You want to be calm and relaxed? You don't need sleeping pills. Here's a Chovos HaLevavos.
Really?
And that changed his life. Not just did it calm him down. He read a little bit before he went to sleep, but he started thinking, and he wrote his whole doctorate on spirituality and mental health. How spirituality, that's the word they have to use instead of religion out there in the secular world, how it helps. And he was a doctor, still is a doctor in Harvard's mental hospital, and he's wearing his yarmulke. He wears a yarmulke. And he's not a rabbi. He's treating people with severe OCD. That's his expertise in anxiety. He has a Center for Anxiety. There's many centers around the country. And he's walking through the halls, and goyim are coming over to him. Hey, rabbis, I'm not a rabbi, but they wanted to talk to somebody. And the mental hospital saw that, hey, we're not servicing that need. And they gave him the job of opening a spirituality and mental health division in Harvard's mental hospital, where they're trying to teach the doctors and the nurses how spirituality can help, and how if you have a belief in what they call a higher force, your life is different. And I use in here a mashal I heard from Rabbi Dr. Zev Brown. He's more a rabbi than a doctor. A great mashal on CBT. He says, imagine you walk out of the room now, and someone just knocks you to the floor. What's your reaction going to be? Just unprovoked.
Yeah.
Unprovoked.
Why do you do that?
What else? I mean, just you say, why'd you do that? Well, I'm sure a little bit more emotion and feeling is going to be in there. I would probably, I don't know, scream at the guy. I don't know. You're very upset. You'd be upset, yeah. Now, what happens if I tell you there's someone that just inherited millions of dollars and he's doing a test? And he wants to see if there's someone that he can knock down, and he'll jump up and hug him. And if he does that, he'll give them $1 million. Then what's your reaction going to be when someone knocks you over?
You'll be hugging everyone in sight. Right?
Hugging everyone in sight. So what does being knocked over elicit? Being upset or hugging people? The answer is, it's all in your head how to react to it. And Rav Wolbe says that's why the Rambam calls midos hilchos deis, because it's all in your mind. The way you react. So if you start, there's a term in psychology which really the Chovos HaLevavos invented. It's called reframing.
Right, you mentioned that quite a bit in the book, yeah.
Right, the Chovos HaLevavos says a mashal, which to me is the greatest mashal of all times. One of the most emotional, moving sights for me is the first bath of a baby. The mother's too nervous. It's her first baby, her first bath. She brings her mother, maybe her mother-in-law. They sit around this little baby. They put him in this special tub. They have the water at the right temperature. And I go back to my childhood memories. They didn't have Johnson & Johnson's no-tear formula. I remember I still remember is the shampoo going in my eyes, and I was scared of baths. But these two people are the most loving people in your life. And who loves the baby more than these two people? And yet the child's screaming because a little shampoo got in his eyes. He says, if you look at life that way, that those painful moments are a little shampoo in your eyes from your loving Father in heaven, it turns everything around. That's an unbelievable reframe. Rav Olbas said that all psychology starts in the Torah. He says, Rav Yisrael Salanter predated Freud on subconscious. So the whole concept of mental health and mental wellness is all there in our Torah. If you really saturate yourself with Chovos HaLevavos, you will be a calmer person.
And how are you actively using these yesodis of Yiddishkeit to help people? Are you doing anything proactively?
Interestingly, in our community, in the Syrian community, we started a organization called Simcha, Sephardic Initiative for Mental Health Awareness. And we're actually training Rabbanim now to use Torah-based knowledge to help people, because today the mental health is a crisis.
Sure.
After Corona. And Rabbanim are being bombarded, and they don't know what to do. So we have Rav Elia Brundi was guiding us. We have a Dr. Steve Zimmerman, Shlomi Zimmerman, and he's training these Rabbanim with Rav Ruben Leuchter from Eretz Yisrael, the Talmud Rav Olba, and we're trying to show how you can use this, Torah knowledge to help people.
Wow, that's fantastic. If I may say, I think one of the struggles that people have with applying Bitachon, and you really allude to it in the book, is that we're surrounded by so much seeming cause and effect. We live in a world of cause and effect. If I do X, I'll end up with Z. We see people who seemingly work very hard and do well in business. We see other people who seemingly don't struggle so much in whatever area it is, whether it's parnasa, chinuch, health, whatever it is that we need. We see other people who don't seem to have that struggle, and we ask why. And again, going back to the cause and effect, that seems to be the blinder that very often blocks us from seeing with clarity. Would you agree with that?
For sure. I mean, we base ourselves on what we see. We live with chushim. We live with our senses. So it has a tremendous impact. I mean, Rabbi Miller used to speak about it. You go out, it's raining outside, and you say it's a miserable day, even though rain is the biggest bracha. But we're impacted by what our eyes see and what we hear, and it's really contrary to everything that we believe, is what we see. And that's why it is a constant battle, because you keep on being conditioned contrary to Bitachon.
Right, I think that's why also a daily dose volume is so important, because maybe there are other topics you could learn once and really just need a review to remember. With Bitachon, we really need that constant infusion, because we're so bombarded on the outside with messages that are so to the contrary of what the real truth is, that we need that constant...
well, the truth is, you have to say Kriya Shema every single day.
Yeah.
And we need constant reminders, because it says, anytime it says remember, it means because there's a force that's making you forget. Right. That's the whole, it says that when you're born into this world, a malach comes and knocks all the Torah, you forget all the Torah that you learned. That's what it says, right? Gemara says that.
Sure.
Rav Dessler writes that malach is not just a malach. He says, Olam Hazeh comes and gives you a bang, and you forget everything that you learned. It means the whole world is just so counter to what we believe in that it just makes you forget everything.
One of the things that I think blinds people, and it's really the $1 million question of Emunah and Bitachon, but I'm just going to throw it out there for your insight, and that is that you look around and you see people who we know are very righteous and live on a very, very high level, clearly have a higher level of emunah and bitachon than I do, and the average person does. And yet we see them seemingly struggle. Parnasa, health, whatever the challenge is that they have. And we wonder why. Clearly they have bitachon, clearly they're relying on Hashem, so why doesn't it seemingly come around for them? What's the answer to that?
That is a very, big discussion, which is really not to answer now. In the world, it's put like two sides. Those that believe that, if I believe that I'm going to get a gold watch now, it'll come in. And those that say don't announce that story because it's going to give the wrong message. Misleading. So there's no one size fits all. To me, the easiest, I don't like to use the word answer, but there's two basic points. Number one is the Navi says, Chov HaLevavos Mikol, when he talks about Bitachon Yirmiyah. And the Mefarshim say, and then it says, Hashem knows what's going on in a person's heart, which means we don't know who has Bitachon and who doesn't. That's number one. Mm-hmm. We don't know what's going on in anyone's heart. We don't know what anyone's tests are. We don't know what their challenges are. So it's very hard to say he had Bitachon. That's number one, as difficult as it might sound.
Right.
Number two is,
even though we know tzaddik be'emunasa yechye, and we know, that bitchu b'Hashem adayah, that the righteous people are, at least our perception is
that they have bitachon. Number two is the Leshem, who's known, he's Rabbi Yasha's grandfather, but he was the Leshem before that. He's great Makubal, and he says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he wants something to happen, it's going to happen. Meaning, Moshe Rabbeinu, if he would have davened tefillah number 516, would have gotten in, but Hashem said don't and closed down the heavens. So you can't play games with Hashem. And he says that if Hashem wants something to happen, he'll take the person's bitachon away. He'll actually make that he can't. He'll put morach b'lvavo. He'll instill a fear in his heart to make it happen. So bitachon might be impregnable, but Hashem could still play with that. He could play with our heads.
Really, my question that I was asking you now, in other words, is the question of tzaddik v'raloi. Why do the righteous suffer if clearly the righteous have the highest levels? Again, we're assuming of emunah and bitachon, and you touch on tzaddik v'raloi in the book.
Right. That's the question for Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, there's no easy answer for that.
Right. That's a hard question. Any takeaway that you want to share with our viewers from the book? Some nugget that you think would encapsulate kind of your message in this book?
So the last lesson I actually was based on Rabbi Ades and Rabbi Segal. You got to wait for I think it's lesson 131 to get there. I was visiting Rabbi Ades recently in Eretz Yisrael, and we were talking about Bitachon, and I forgot exactly how it came up, but I was in a hotel, and I was checking out, and I wanted to make sure everything was smooth, so I went there at 8 o'clock in the morning after davening Nate's by the Kosel, and I said, you know what, make sure there's no incidentals, everything's covered, I'm done, just say goodbye and get into the cab. Done. Okay? I walk in, the lady says, no, you have another $100 or something on the bill. I covered it already. No, you didn't. No, the taxi's waiting. What's going on? So I go to my wife, did you charge anything after this? Oh, yeah, I took some guests for breakfast. Put it on the bill. Took another 15, 20 minutes. It was frustrating. We were checking out for Shabbos, and I went to Rabbi Ades after that. That was the next stop. And he said, imagine a malach came down and whispered in the lady's ear, aggravate this man. It was a message from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Would you start getting aggravated? You'd know that's exactly what's supposed to happen. And he said it's a life's work to be able to live life like that things don't frustrate you because you really believe that's exactly what's supposed to be happening. And on that same trip, I went to Rav Don Segal, and he said, when you say Sha'asa li kol tzarki in the morning, that means Hashem does everything I need. He says, you're walking the street, and you slip on a banana. You know what you're supposed to say? Ooh, I didn't realize I needed that today. Or you get stuck in traffic for an hour. I didn't realize I needed that today. Or they cancel your flight and you sit in the airport for 8 hours. I didn't realize I needed that today. That's a reframe.
That's a reframing, right.
But Ravada said it's a life's work. And that's why you need it every single day. Because I literally wrote the book and speak to my wife. I get frustrated. So you just, because we have in ourselves, and this is really everything. We have our heart, brain, heart. And what's in our brain doesn't necessarily, there's a gap from your brain to your heart. Itzel Petterberg says, like from the Shemayim to the Aretz. There's light years of a separation, and your heart is its own creature, so to say. He says, but don't despair, because rain comes from the heaven down to the earth. Mm-hmm. And trickle, trickle, trickle down. And that's what every single day, you get a little water the plant, so to say, every single day. Put some bitachon in your heart. V'yadata hayom b'Chovos HaLevavos. That's the job. And I thought of a chiddush. V'yadata hayom means today. Yesterday's yediyas is not going to help you for today. Mm-hmm. Every day needs another dose. Put the message from your heart from your brain into your heart.
And that's one of the yesodis of Emunah and Bitachon is also worrying only about today, not worrying about the future.
Yes, for sure.
Which is what you talk about a lot. That so much of the agonizing and the frustration that people experience is really about the future. They're worried what's going to be tomorrow.
Right now,
and
you have your bed, you have your food.
They have lodging, they have a family, they're doing fairly well. It's usually about the future.
And to appreciate what you have right now.
Right.
To appreciate Hashem's chesed in the moment means before I ask for more, I have to really say, what do I have till now?
Right.
Everything's great till now.
That's what this book opens the door to, appreciating the daily kindnesses of Hashem and really achieving a life of serenity. That's what this book does. I think it does it in an amazing way. I'm going to say something. I'm going to guarantee any viewer out there who buys this book, money back guarantee on this book. From having gone through it myself, there's no chance that anyone's going to read this and not feel different. I'm not going to say for you to say this because you're but you're the author. I'm saying it from a reader's vantage point. Money back guarantee on this book. This book will change the way people look at their everyday. It's very easy to read. It's mamish a life changer, and I thank you for taking the time and to do what you did. It's really a tremendous achievement.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you so much. Thanks for joining us today.
Hatzlacha.